Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're enjoying Cora's Leading Through Innovation series. We have a great group of speakers today, and our topic is focusing on today, but building for the future. We're going to learn more about MEDBRIDGE, Therapy Essentials, Purple, CWS's reboot, Augment Therapy, and medical leads and screenings. So sit back and enjoy our speakers. But make sure to write down the game code. It's program. Again, the game code is program. I'll be monitoring the chat box, so if you have any questions, shoot me a message. Enjoy.
All right, welcome everyone. I am here today with Heath BYERLY, who is our Director of Clinical Education, and we are going to be discussing MEDBRIDGE. And I know there's a lot to MEDBRIDGE, and appreciate Jesse taking the time to share all the aspects of it. So the first question I have for you is, what is MEDBRIDGE? What is it? What does it do?
Hi, everyone, first of all, and thank you for having me. I love to talk about MEDBRIDGE. So, yeah, there are lots of different components to MEDBRIDGE. There is the clinician aspect of it that, is really helpful to us to continue our knowledge, and the CE aspect of it, which was really what we originally looked at MEDBRIDGE for, right? We started looking at the continuing education platform, looking at knowledge tracks, looking at the libraries, right? There's tons of video libraries that we can dive into a little bit more. But really, that's where they started, looking at the clinician aspect of it. But then on the other side of it is the patient engagement suite that they have. And that really includes the home exercise program, patient education, which is digital and video aspect of it, as well as patient adherence for their home exercise program, trackers that they can use, and now the latest that we're using it for is the telehealth platform.
MEDBRIDGE originally. What made it special to you?
Yeah, I think when we started looking at what we needed, right, so CEUs for the clinician, really finding a platform that allowed for the clinicians to have efficient and ease of use, right? We don't have to travel. We can find something easy for them to use. That was number one. Then I wanted to find something that was applicable to the entire company. So we've got a really diverse company. We've got PTs, OTs, PTAs, FODAs, SLPs, athletic trainers. So I wanted a platform that provided CEUs for all disciplines. So that was, our primary, I really wanted to find that. But then MEDBRIDGE also has a course for every specialty within the rehab realm, right? If you want to specialize in aquatics or pediatrics, we can find a course on MEDBRIDGE that can start that specialty program or clinical program. And so that was really where MEDBRIDGE excels at. They also have the best instructors in the field, right? There's Adrian Lau, leaders from SFMA are on MEDBRIDGE, and I think that's one of the high qualities that they bring in, and so it's engaging for the clinicians to use. The learning is also case-based, so the clinician is engaged throughout the course, right? So you're not taking an exam at the end of the course. You're engaged throughout the course, so you have to be engaged throughout the whole course instead of through the end, okay, now I'm going to test you. So all of the courses have case-based learning, and I think that's different than a lot of the online platforms that we evaluated. So that was another really high point of MEDBRIDGE when we looked at the CEU platform alone. That was really the high point of me for looking at MEDBRIDGE, and I hope that everybody has kind of seen that difference. We did a pilot this year of about 100 clinicians of their home exercise program. And so we've gotten really good feedback for the MEDBRIDGE home exercise program and patient education. So that's also something that's unique to the MEDBRIDGE home exercise program patient engagement platform, where you can assign patients animated information education about their diagnosis. or there's even things about body mechanics, or we can even make our own education. So, for example, we have added flyers, right, so that we're sending them information about our therapy essentials on a monthly basis. So that's unique to MedBridge. So anyway, we got really good feedback on the patient education or patient home exercise program and education platform. Patient adherence to home exercise program is really important for us to be engaging, having those early conversations with our patients about what their role is in their rehab, and that's part of that home exercise program. So the home exercise program that MedBridge provides is video. It can be printed out, it can be thumbnails, but the video platform that they use can be played like an exercise program. So it's not repetition. So it's not 3 sets of 10. It's more like a home exercise video that you would get engaged in at a gym, or just like a normal video that you're doing live with someone.
It's now, you mentioned earlier telehealth, and it seems like that home program just meshes so greatly with the telehealth aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, so the telehealth platform is built right in with that patient education and home exercise program. So the telehealth, the therapist can actually be showing them exercises and building out their platform at the same time that they're doing that virtual program. The virtual or the telehealth platform is our preferred platform for on MedBridge. It's really HIPAA compliant. They have the informed consent right on there. They're always making improvements with that. The newest thing is that they're going to be showing split screens. So I think MedBridge is always upping their game. They're always looking for feedback from us, and that was actually one of the things that our clinicians provided to them. Hey, this is something that we want. We really want a waiting room. Well, guess what? We got a waiting room. So MedBridge is always trying to provide clinicians and patients with the next best thing, and so telehealth is definitely a platform that they're improving on a monthly basis.
Any other aspects of MedBridge that I did not touch on that you'd like to share with everyone?
The one thing that I really want us to take advantage of is the knowledge tracks. And the knowledge tracks are something that we're working on for our clinical programs. We did a bunch this year. So for post-COVID and deconditioning, we have one for balance and falls. We have a telehealth one. So the knowledge tracks is where we can take courses, we can take articles, anything we really want, and put them in one centralized location for everyone to see, and you can find it really quickly. So we can take all of the courses on post-COVID and put it in one spot, or all the courses on balance and falls in one spot, and you can work through them. And that's really how we can centralize a place for people to work on their clinical programs or specialties. The other thing that I want people to know is that there are MedBridge certificates. So if you're looking to expand your knowledge in concussion, there is an online MedBridge certificate. Again, it's very similar. It's just a centralized location to locate courses. There's a bunch of different ones. But it's also what we're using for board certifications now. So they have a bunch of prep programs, sports, ortho, geriatrics, and they have really great pass rates if you work through their prep programs that include practice exams. So that's what the tools that we're going to use going forward for board certifications with good results.
Hello, everyone. I am here with Jolie, and we are going to be discussing therapy essentials. And I think that is, you know, an interesting topic as we continue our discussion on focusing on today and building for tomorrow. Therapy essentials was one of those areas that really fits that perfectly. For some people, it was very new and foreign. And so talk a little bit about just the training that's available for therapy essentials.
Yeah, so you bring up an excellent point, and we've already been able to release an introductory level training that really identifies exactly what therapy essentials is, why we need it, how it fills that gap in services, explains how best to access it, and the idea that we're really trying to eliminate as many barriers as possible for our patients in order for them to be as effective with their home exercise program as possible and get the best outcomes. So it's kind of like a general introduction to the idea of an online marketplace like Therapy Essentials. And that is not only available now on Bridge, but it's also now part of our new hire curriculum on Bridge, as well as part of the integration process for acquisitions. So that's available now. What we're currently working on is something that goes a little bit deeper and helps therapists really kind of grasp the idea of how to have those conversations with their patients, how to make those recommendations. And we've been able to bring in a lot of feedback from their peers on how they integrate it into their workflow daily. Because anytime you have something new, it takes a little while for people to integrate that into that process, into their workflow, and really adopt it. So that's what this second training is going to do, and that should be available really soon.
I think one of the things that really has stuck out to me is that, involvement of the clinician and how important that is in the clinics that are really utilizing Therapy Essentials a lot and having a lot of success. It's that engagement with the PT, OT, and other therapists that are involved in the care of the patient, or CODAs, PTAs, speech therapists that are making those recommendations and are really customizing and tailoring the patient's plan of care and the items that might be needed in checklist formats and a lot of creative ways. And I think, what was generated out of the necessity during, COVID and telehealth is really morphing into what we should have been doing probably more of years ago, which is just really, as we develop that plan of care, ensuring that the patient has the items that they need to successfully rehabilitate at home, because of so much of the recovery really occurs in their home program. And we talked about this earlier, Jesse and I did on an earlier conversation of just about how important MedBridge is in that process. Well, having professional items at home to help you rehabilitate is just as important. It's not only the knowledge, but it's the equipment and understanding how to utilize that. And how better to do that than to be able to go through a checklist of items that you might need on the front end of your plan of care, acquire those items, be able to bring them into the clinic, have the therapist show them how to use it. It really helps to provide a much more customized plan of care for the patient, and really helps to ensure not only compliance but effectiveness of your plan of care. So I think that as we've gone and it's continued to evolve and the future kind of moves forward, we're seeing, so much success in a lot of areas where people are embracing this model of care.
Yeah, definitely. And it's been a huge initiative for us as an organization really to focus on that experience that the patient is having in our clinic. And that's one thing that kind of initiated all the planning for our online marketplace, is that gap in services that we weren't fulfilling before. But the best part about it, right, is that they are the same products, essentially, that they're using in the clinic. I mean, how many times have you had a patient prior to this marketplace say, oh, I really wish I had this at home, and now they can really get it. So I think that's something that a lot of patients have expressed gratitude for, that they have that same quality that they've been using in the clinic, and that's what they're comfortable with.
Having someone evaluate the problem and prescribe the needed items, it's like taking your car in to get it worked on. You're trusting the mechanic, the professional, to tell you, okay, these two items need to be fixed immediately or your car is going to break down. Or these might be a couple of items that might be coming down the road you want to think about. And it's the same kind of concept. We want to help, our patients return their function, and not only now, but also really thoroughly evaluating and saying, oh, by the way, you sit, at your desk for 8 hours a day. You might want to think about a lumbar roll, even though you're not having low back pain now. you might want to consider these items. And I know a lot of our clinicians are taking that next level of step of really help preventing, other issues from occurring, which is really neat to see. Hello, everyone. I am here with the great KESSEM Winger, who is going to inform us about purple. It's more than just a color. So, KESSEM, tell us a little bit about purple, what it does, and how it can be utilized to serve our patients.
I'd love to. So, purple is it's called VRI. It's a video remote interpreting service. So, they offer sign language services, and they offer the traditional sign language services, ASL services, on site, just like we've always had. But what's really neat about this product is that they also offer those same services remotely. So a lot of the clinics, as you all know, because you're all in the clinics, have issues from time to time where a patient comes in, needs sign language translation services, interpreting services, and there's a 2-hour minimum for the on-site service. The translators sometimes, or the interpreters sometimes aren't timely. Sometimes they aren't necessarily effective. There's all kinds of issues that come up with the on-site services. This is a remote service. It's available 24/7. You don't have to schedule it in advance. It's on demand. So patient comes in and you want an interpreter, you just click on the link and within 5 seconds you have an interpreter available to you.
Wow, that's fantastic. I know that's, being in the clinic, we have had some patients that needed those services. And like you said, the interpreter may be late, they may be very early. Having that on demand is really awesome. That is a fantastic option. So we're talking about kind of building today for the future. So how did we begin, researching that, and how did we come about finding purple?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. So actually a personal connection, a good friend of mine who is very big in the disability community. She runs a nonprofit organization for people with disabilities. And when I started getting questions from therapists here locally saying, it's really hard for us when we need an interpreter. It's very expensive. And again, we run into all these problems, and, they really just wanted a better solution. So I said, well, I know one person who probably can help me. So I went to her and I asked her, and immediately she said, oh my God, you guys don't use VRI? Which I didn't even know what that was. So I said, no, we don't. And she said, let me introduce you to a few people. And that's really where the connection started. I talked to a few different services. And this one in particular, I really appreciated a few things about them. Number one, they are recognized, or they were recognized as 2020 best places to work for people for disability inclusion. They're a disability owned company. Majority of their employees have various disabilities, but majority of their employees are either deaf or hard of hearing. So it's something that's very, and so they were able to give me confidence in the fact that a video option is acceptable to that community.
Yes.
And more than acceptable, it's actually, in a lot of instances, believe it or not, a preferred method for the deaf community. So that's really how it happened.
Wow, that's a really interesting story. And I think, again, it goes back to the testament of just, in our daily workings, there are small changes or connections that can really make a big impact as we move forward in the future. So that's a classic case of that. So I know we don't know all of the specifics of exactly how it's going to work, but I'm assuming that just if someone has a patient that needs this type of services, how will they access that?
Yeah, you're right. I don't know a lot of the details, but just because I'm not that tech savvy, but essentially you have to have the right kind of connection, which we have. And then the only thing we need in the clinics is an iPad or some kind of a tablet, which we already have. And that's it. There'll be, you know, again, an icon or whatever on your main screen. You click on the button and it automatically calls the service. And then they, again, filter through just like with any other algorithm. The first available interpreter comes to you.
Great. That sounds pretty easy. I think I could even handle that. So when would we anticipate this being available? Just a rough estimate.
It should be available early 2021.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That is such a great service because, you know, again, in some of our clinics here in Tennessee, they're rural. You know, we have people that could use those services. And again, it is very costly a lot of times to have a in-person interpreter. And there's the logistic issues and that sort of thing. So this is really an outstanding option for a lot of the areas that are a little more outside of the urban environment. So that's going to be awesome for a lot of clinics that we have.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add, KESSEM?
Other than the fact that I'm just really excited to be able to roll this out in 2021. I think it's going to be great for the clinicians. I think it's going to be great for the patients. I think it's great for the community, and I'm happy that we're able to participate in something like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just, again, testament to Cora's commitment to serve everyone. And again, another innovation for 2021. So thanks for taking the time to tell us about it.
Sure. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with Brian and Jolie, and we're going to be discussing what was once Clinical Workstation, the new version of that that is being developed by Brian and his team. And it's really interesting, you know, to think about what we use so much on a daily basis, how it impacts our workflow and our day. The person behind the scenes to help make that happen and to help improve on some of those areas. So I'm excited to talk to Brian and Jolie. First of all, Clinical Workstation, that's what we're accustomed to. Your team has been evaluating that, taking responses back from clinicians and other individuals within the company. Talk to me a little bit about that process and how you went about evaluating Clinical Workstation and what you're doing now.
A whole slew of ideas that came out, and one of the things I do want to emphasize is we started with a blank slate. And what I kept telling everybody is, I'm not here to say no, I am here to say yes. So we would go through ideas and concepts and, you know, how we wanted it to look and feel and behave and all those things. And we also evaluated, you know, our existing systems to determine what is it that works from our existing software and what doesn't work. And, you know, in fact, pretty much every area of CWS has been completely rethought and redesigned, with the exception maybe of the exercise log. I believe is one area of the system that we felt was pretty rock solid and it really works for Cora. So that is only receiving some minor tweaks. But we continue to have meetings and get therapist input and formulate the plan and put together a requirement spec and screen designs and kind of work our way through it. Jolie, I'm sure you can chime in a little bit better on how we solicited some inputs.
Yeah, so as part of my role in clinical services, I get the unique perspective of working with a lot of new hires. And so it's always nice to see when new hires come in, what they value from our EMR and what they miss from the prior EMR that they were using, or like what they've used in their career. And that's true as well as being part of the acquisitions team. So anytime we have training for newly acquired clinics, I get to hear what their feedback is of our existing EMR and how it compares. So that feedback, I think, was really valuable for us to be able to identify what worked and what we really needed to work on. And one of the biggest things I think that we heard a lot was that it had a really outdated look and feel. And they really liked and enjoyed how it had a really strong compliance component. So one thing I think we did well that, was reiterated constantly was that we kind of have the therapist back with making sure that it's thorough documentation, but it's also going to be compliant and reimbursable. So those are things that we were working with initially as well.
And Brian, this is developed. You're developing this. This is not an off-the-shelf product, and it's not just as easy as, change this font or change this color at times. It takes a lot of thought and work to go into really developing this kind of software. So talk to me a little bit about that process. That's really intriguing. How do you start from a blank slate and create usable?
Well, I think it's an interesting capability that we have here at Cora, that we can build our own software and we can utilize our own software. I think a lot of providers end up having to use third-party software, and then they're forced to work their processes and their practices into what the software can do. And that's not how we do it at Cora. We've built our business model, and then we tailor the software to adhere to that business model and to help support it. It's one of those unique things that Cora can bring to the table. Initially, when we start a project of this size, and we've done it a couple of times, I've kind of done it with Scheduler way back in the day. I've been around for kind of a long time. CWS, some other ones, but like one of the more recent ones that we worked on was the FCE application, which was, blank slate from the ground up. And typically when we start a project like that, it is a kind of chaotic process at first for me, because there's so much information that needs to be processed. And, as a software engineer, I don't know all the nuances of some of the language that is used by therapists and things like that. But over the years, I think I've kind of grown a little bit more accustomed to them. But typically what we do is we gather as much information that we can as fast as we can, as everybody's spewing it out. And then we start to kind of categorize it into functionality, into chunks. And there's effectively a living document that I start building, and it is 95% questions. Somebody will say, well, we need this in the system, and that's going to generate, 10 or 15 questions from me. And so those questions go into the document. Then we have meetings, discuss those, which leads to even more questions. So the questions kind of grow and grow and grow and grow. And then finally we get to the point where we get over the hump and we start getting more answers than we have questions. And we kind of arrive at this final requirements document. And one of the things that Cora heavily utilizes during that process is screen designs. So we put together mock-up screens that are not functional, but at least you get the look of how the application is going to be organized, and you can kind of talk to how, if they click this, it's going to go over here and do that now. And so we document the screens, we document the behavior of the screens. That's kind of the business logic behind the scenes. And then once we have everything in this document, everybody reviews it with a fine-tooth comb several times, and we basically certify it as, here's what we're going to build. At that point, we go back through also and we kind of phase out what we're going to release and when, so that we know kind of what our targets are early on, what's absolutely required for the system to function, what are things that can be added later. And that's kind of how we identify and phase our development approach.
And Jolie, I know you do a lot of continual reassessment and improvement and that sort of thing. Talk a little bit more about, I guess, that process of just what it will look like when it's being rolled out and tested and gathering information back and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So Emily and I were tasked to help Brian kind of from the clinical side identify exactly what it is that we needed and what that should look like, what features we wanted to add, what we wanted to keep. And it was really, really interesting to us because it was the first time we'd been involved in a project of this magnitude and this type of technology-related project. So we're really, really grateful to have had Brian to walk us through all of that. because it was completely new to us. But it's really exciting because we will come to Brian with an idea and say, hey, we really wanted to do this. And he doesn't laugh at us. He just plays along, and he'll ask the 20 questions that it'll take for us to realize that's probably not going to be possible. But he will help us identify what the next possible capability to our dreams and aspirations for this software can be so that it will be functional. And he's really helped us, I think, to design something that will appeal to everyone and solve a lot of the issues that we've been dreaming of, you know, over the last decade of CWS. And that involves a lot of feedback through surveys, and we also had many task forces to help us kind of identify exactly what the field liked and didn't like and what they were looking for. A lot of feedback from in the loop as well. So we've shared some snippets anytime we ran into a little bit of a roadblock on how we wanted to see something developed as a feature. We asked as many people as we could to get some insight on, you know, what it is the field wanted to see.
Not to spill the beans too much, but what are some of those areas just at a high level that are being looked at to help improve that efficiency?
Let's see. I can point out a couple of probably big heavy hitters. One of them is it's going to be web-based, so it's no longer going to be a Java application that's run through Citrix. Citrix will be out of the picture as far as the new version of CWS goes. We're still working on a name. So let's see. So that's one of them. You'd be able to access it from anywhere. The idea is we'll even be able to access it outside of the corporate network if need be. So we're going to enable that, you know, in a HIPAA compliant manner, external from Quora as needed. I think another big hitter is they'll have the capability to have multiple patients open and documenting them simultaneously. Yeah. So that's one of the questions that we've had for a very long time. And we had tried to go down that path years and years ago and ran into some challenges there and some mix-ups in documentation. And so we've constructed the application in a way that I think it's very obvious who you're working on. Their name is always on the screen right in front of you. It's kind of a tabbed approach, and each patient has their own tab. And within that tab, you can have old documentation open, new documentation open, their admission information up, and you can kind of switch between those at the click of a tab. So we've really tried to provide all of the information at the therapist's fingertips while not making it overwhelming, which has kind of been a challenge. There's a fine balance there, right?
Right.
So we worked really hard on how we were going to design the screens in order to not overwhelm them, but give them that capability. And we've got, you know, tabs to organize data better, and we've also got the capability for them to kind of shrink and expand certain areas of notes, for example. So once you're done with the subjective, you can close that and it kind of shrinks up, but it's still there. And if you want to see it, you just click on it and expands it again. We have that kind of throughout the application, that whole look and feel.
So thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, everyone. I'm here with Megan Owens, and we are going to discuss augment therapy for pediatrics. And first of all, Megan, what is augment therapy and who's it for?
Augment therapy is an interactive therapeutic exercise system, and it's a bunch of software that was developed by a pediatric physical therapist, Lindsay Watson. It is designed for pediatrics, but could also be used with our adult population.
Awesome. So how did you find out about this software? What was, I guess, the process of discovery?
Yeah, Rob. So I'm in a bunch of pediatric physical therapy Facebook groups, and Lindsay had actually posted in one of them about a free trial of augment therapy. So I hopped on the website, looked into it, and became very interested. as it is very similar to something I wrote a paper about in DPT school. And I ended up signing up for the free trial. Lindsay emailed me right away just a couple days later. We set up a Zoom call, and we've gone from there. We actually ended up extending our 30-day trial an additional 2 weeks, and I'm continuing to work with Lindsay on determining whether or not there's a package that would best suit us at Cora.
Just maybe describe how some of the exercises are implemented. Does it look somewhat like a video game format, or in some instances, or are you following someone on the screen? Describe how the software might look for one of the clinicians.
Absolutely. So from a clinician standpoint, as well as from the patient standpoint, you have the nice big screen. On the left-hand side of the screen is the mirror image of the patient who's doing the exercises. And on the right-hand screen, you can choose your own character. So there are animals, there are avatars that look similar to humans, and it's very fun and interactive. I know when I was trying it out with my own kids, they kept wanting to switch which avatar they were to see what all of them looked like. But it basically inserts you into a video game type of background, and each exercise has a different background. There are even full cities, if you will, developed, where one of them you get to go back to the Old West, and you have to go hunt around for stars, and you walk past like the saloon, and you walk past all these horses tied up on posts. It's pretty cool.
That is neat. That's really creative that they came up with those different scenes and scenarios, because that would be, I'm sure, very intriguing to kids. So you did mention, you know, even adult populations. So how might that work with our adult patients?
Absolutely. What you enter is basically the patient's height. So they have to be, I don't even know that they have a limit for height. It has been used in the adult population in a very limited capacity, because right now they're really focusing on pediatrics. But you enter the patient's height, they have to be spaced back about 8 feet from the system. So that's where we run into issues, is if we are in a smaller clinic and have some space issues. But other than that, because the software uses an iPhone or an iPad, it uses the camera function and just captures your body and mirrors that so you can do the movements. It would be great for the adults. I know when I was practicing it, I wanted to hop on and try it.
Is there a way that it scores the performance of the individual? How does that work?
Yes. It will record the start time and end time of the session. It also records start time and end time for each of the exercises. Each exercise also has different things that they're tracking. So for example, with single leg stance exercises, it will give you a score as well as the distribution of scores for single leg stance. Number of repetitions, you get to choose that as well, and all of this is recorded.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining again. Our focus on today and building for the future. I have Lewis and Brandy here, and they are going to share some exciting information about medical leave.
All right, Rob. Well, thanks for the intro there. Yeah, just like you mentioned, I think we're seeing a pretty dynamic shift in the PT industry, and I think in a lot of industries really, where ultimately the consumers, the patients are really seeking out where to go for therapy or for any other medical based on the company's reputation, based on advertisements they see either through social or through different sorts of media. So that's something that I know we're going to be doing much more of in the future. As most of you know, we do have a free screen program through our website. We've been doing that for a few years now. The plan is to basically accelerate that. How do we accelerate that? And how do we let our public know and our communities know that we're here to help them out? So I think the pilot that we've been doing now for the past month and a half is a great start, and it's definitely different from what we've done. And Brandy, I think it'll be good for you to kind of walk us through that, how that opportunity came up, and how we've been running that.
But this pilot that we're doing now is just slightly different. And it does give us an opportunity to kind of reach out and figure out, what are people responding to? Is it back pain ads? Is it shoulder ads? Is it knee pain? And then, based on the region, how can we tweak those and reach more people? So it's been an interesting pilot so far. What we're doing is, this is strictly through Facebook and Instagram. I'm sure lots of employees have seen a lot of our ads come across their Facebook feed. These are slightly different. They're very direct. As Lewis mentioned, they are offering the free screen, but we're talking about, in those particular regions, those experts. Who are those clinicians? What are their credentials? What are they specializing in? What kind of free screen? Is it a back pain? Is it a knee, shoulder, fall and balance screen? So based on that demographic. So we basically go into Facebook, we set up an audience profile. These are not going to just anyone. They're going to very specific people who have searched for, our services and things like that. So they're very targeted. And we set a budget, and we kind of watch that daily to see how it's going. The leads come in, they come into a dashboard where we can text or phone call these people back, respond very quickly, and get them on the schedule. So that's really the basis of it. And it's, again, given us a good idea of how, we can reach these direct-to-consumer folks that an audience that we previously probably wouldn't have access to. And, what are they responding to, and how can we get them in the clinic and let them know what Cora has to offer in their community?
Up to that point, I think one of the things that we're, again, really working on is refining that process. Somebody obviously responds to one of those ads because it talks to them. They're probably dealing with some issues that they haven't figured out, and there's actually been several cases where we've actually, worked with some folks from the community that have gone to see physicians, gone to see pain medicine doctors, and they're stuck. They don't really, and we've been able to get them in, and from what I've heard, I think they're progressing. So again, it's about treating the community right, and giving them that quick access to a musculoskeletal expert that can, give them an opinion of, we can definitely help you, or maybe you should go see a certain physician or go see another specialist, and I think that's all what it's all about. So I think right now the focus of the pilot is really kind of, we're getting, some of these leads are coming in over the weekend, late at night, so it's, we're really trying to work through how do we get to these folks, as soon as possible, because I think that's definitely one of the things that will make it successful, right? Getting to them right away. So everybody on this call and everybody that's going to be at the conference, you're on your phone all day. You're on Facebook, and that's the community, right? So just like Brandy mentioned, folks are out there Googling, man, I have back pain, I have this, I have that. And there's a gazillion different ways and different avenues to take. And I think, again, us being PTs, we're the experts. And I think this is definitely something that we need to be doing to make sure that, I think the stat is only 5% of folks with back pain actually go to physical therapy. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Not only for us as an industry, but for patients to seek out the right care right away, right? So I think that's ultimately what excites me about this type of approach. And I think it's time for us to not have to rely on physicians. The old-fashioned, okay, go see a therapist 3 times a week, 4 weeks. A lot of these physicians have their own places now, which may or may not be the best option for them. So I think it's almost our duty to reach out to our folks in our community and say, hey, listen, we're here. Come see us. If you have insurance or not, we'll do a screen and we'll get you in. So that's what excites me about the opportunities there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's when we market and we brand Cora, right? A lot of times we look to do it on a global scale, but this also gives us a really cool tool to market those clinicians in each region, right? And highlight and showcase some of their specialties as well and get them out there. So I really like that aspect of it too, and I think they do too. I think it gets them real excited.
I think the one thing, and I don't want to get too technical, but the concept of that dashboard is something that we definitely like. I know we're talking to all the Cora folks out here, so I'm sure everybody knows how scheduler works I think that the trick has always been, these are technically not referrals, right? So there's no SYS number, there's no physician name. So the tracking of from receiving the lead to getting that lead scheduled to then, is that complimentary screen, injury assessment, whatever it may require, does that then convert over to an eval? That's I think, again, for me and kind of my operational brain, that's another thing that I think is something that will be exciting in 2021 to kind of work on that dashboard and see it come to life. And again, now we'll have a way of tracking